Okie. So today we are going to be talking about the root causes of hormonal imbalances and what we can do about it as Ayurveda and women's health or women's holistic health coaches. Um, so this topic was suggested by beautiful Julie, one of our students, as we were speaking last time, that these Ayurveda alchemist embodiment calls, they're all about what topics you guys really want to dive into a lot deeper and really familiarize yourself. And if you're already working with clients, like you can bring case studies to them, because you've got all the pre-recorded modules. So you've got heaps of information and learning Ayurveda from A to Z in all those pre-recorded modules. So these calls, we can really go deeper on those subjects or even some new topics, which we have been doing this year, which is awesome. So I would like them to be more interactive as well. So if you have any questions, like just jump in, you can pop your virtual hand up or you can just jump in if appropriate. And if you have, like I said, any case studies working with clients, we can really learn from those as well. So first of all, I think I'll start this by saying, like, when we talk about, actually, I'm going to throw it to you guys. When we talk about hormonal imbalances, so if you hear someone say, I help women with hormonal imbalances, what do you think of?
Perimenopause and postmenopause.
Perimenopause and postmenopause. And what are the hormones driving that change?
Estrogen.
Estrogen, yeah. And Melissa said, she's in the chat, she said period issues. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yep, period issues. And generally, when we think about menstrual issues, again, we're thinking of estrogen and progesterone. But also the thyroid plays a huge part in our menstrual cycle, as do a lot of our hormones. So when we talk about hormonal imbalances, a lot of people go estrogen and progesterone, like the sex hormones are out of balance, but we have over 50 hormones. Like, we've got so many hormones in our body. And just like we know the mind and body isn't separated, either is our hormones. Hormones are chemical messengers, and they communicate with each other. They communicate with our body, our organs, the way we function. They are so important on so many levels. For instance, like our estrogen, we think might govern our menstrual cycle, and it drops in menopause and makes us have hot flushes and cranky. But our estrogen actually supports our bone density, it supports our cardiovascular health, it supports our weight, it supports just so many things. The same for our progesterone. Our progesterone can really support our weight as well. It can also support our mental health. So when we talk about estrogen and progesterone, they're just two of the many hormones we have that support our whole body function. And Julie, for you in your field, so Julie, for those who have not met Julie yet, she is a women's health coach, but her background is in personal training. So you see clients, is it over 40, Julie, that you see?
Yeah, generally over 40 or younger girls that are, because I'm finding there's a percentage of younger girls now that are really interested in their health. So less of them are on contraception, and they're trying to tune in, and they've got pain around, or premenstrual pain, heavy period, stuff like that. So they're kind of looking into the PCOS and endometriosis. So those types of females as well.
Okay.
The ones that it doesn't sit right to just exercise hard and eat less. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And just going back, because you do see, you were working a lot with perimenopausal women through that transition. And so for yourself, for instance, like, we talk about helping with bone density, because we know that when we age, our bone density goes down. So a lot of body weight exercises help to support that. But why is that so important? Because our hormones are shifting to cause that bone density fluctuation, right? Yeah. So when you're training clients in that age bracket, yes, you might be trying to build up bone strength and bone health and muscles to support, and the ligament and the soft tissues, all of that. But it's but you're doing that because their hormones are shifting, and that's why there's a change in the bones and the muscles and the tendons and ligaments and tissues. So you can see that hormones, they really govern our whole functioning. And so when we say from an Ayurvedic coaching perspective that we can support women with hormonal imbalances, is because hormonal imbalances, they happen at this core level of what a lot of people overlook. So you don't just wake up one day and your estrogen goes, oh, F you, progesterone, I'm not going to play with you anymore, and I'm going to like skyrocket and you're going to piss off and see you later, like give the finger to the thyroid hormones, whatever. Like, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't wake up and they start being cranky with each other. There's something that happens first to derail that beautiful chemistry that they have, and that connection and the communication pathways. Like, something comes in to stir up their relationship with ourselves and our body. And often we feel like we're the ones going crazy. We feel this, we feel that, and we really personalize it, but it's just our hormones. Their relationship isn't harmonious, and something has caused that. And yes, aging is one, and, you know, obviously, is it normal to be emotional? Oh, yeah.
Like, no, it's more, I was thinking, is it this probably something to do with like emotions? So like a trauma response or.
Yes, absolutely. And we did even a talk on like the metaphysics a while back, remember? And we were speaking like women who do suffer with things like PCOS, endo, sometimes, not all the time, and it depends on how deep you want to go, but a lot of the time there is like an underlying trauma or response that could have triggered that. But when you're talking about emotions and trauma triggering hormonal imbalances, 100%, because what happens is, like I said, we can talk about a hormonal imbalance being estrogen versus progesterone, the sex hormones, but realistically, what most of the time it is it's our hormones versus our stress hormones. And so what a trauma response does is it creates our stress hormones to be overstimulated. And when our stress hormones are overstimulated, our sex hormones are understimulated. And so the imbalance is between the sex and the stress hormones. So if you were trying to help someone by balancing their hormones and they're still going through a lot of stress, and they haven't addressed that, then it's going to be really, really hard to get their hormones in an optimal place. That's like if you've heard the term, we talk about adrenal fatigue or HPA axis dysregulation. That adrenal fatigue, it just means that you've been under so much stress. Your adrenal glands that sit on top of your kidneys have been pumping out adrenaline and cortisol for so long. You're either in that full flight mode, or if they've done it for so long, the communication pathway starts to get a bit lazy, and you lose your cortisol. And we give cortisol a really bad rep, and in high doses and for a long period of time, it does cause a lot of unwanted symptoms to the body. But when it's optimal, it comes in to help fight inflammation. It is there to support us. Everything in our body is there to support us in the right increments, in the balanced state. There's nothing in there that is bad. It's all there to support us. So cortisol is very important, but if it's too high or too low, it will cause a disruption in your hormonal imbalance, your hormone balance, and that disruption will be with your sex hormones as well, with your thyroid, because they all communicate and talk to each other. The HPA axis dysregulation, which is a fancy way of saying adrenal fatigue, just means that the hypothalamus in the brain, what happens is the hypothalamus talks to the adrenals, and that's the communication pathway. But so the hypothalamus to the pituitary in the brain, then to the adrenals, and the HPO is the same, hypothalamus, pituitary, ovaries. So you can see there's like strong links between the communication pathways. The hormonal communication pathways, a lot of them start in the brain. And that's why, again, there's so many crossovers with the mind-body communication pathways.
And so just one more, sorry, on that. So, for example, when you're pregnant, you are getting so many more hormones obviously running through your body. So that then can trigger more of what you're saying as well. But would there be different methods because you're pregnant? So obviously like different herbs and stuff aren't probably allowed to be taken. There's just different ways to try and bring that, like the woman's hormones sort of back into as much balance as possible to not to make them feel so crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're pregnant, you need the surge of hormones because that's what supports the fetus. That's what helps it grow. I can't remember the exact statistic, or statistics are not the right word, but I think the adrenal glands are one of the first little organs to sort of be created, or there's something really important about that in the development of the fetus. So you do need that hormonal surge. So you don't want to be like trying to minimize hormones, but you might be doing other somatic practices to help stabilize those hormones, and more so stabilize the stress hormones, because you do need those sex hormones peak. So when you go to find out if you're pregnant or not, you get a blood test called beta-HCG. And if it's high, it means you're pregnant. And that's because it's like that high surge of hormones. Often the issue happens postpartum, and that's where women get into that postpartum depression because they've had this surge of hormones and then they rapidly drop once the baby's born. And it's that drop and that fluctuation in hormones that can really mess around with a woman's psyche and also the new life and not sleeping and identity. I mean, there's so many, it's never just one thing. Hormones, there's always a psychological component because we're human beings, and that's just what happens. Even if we break our leg, you know, the bone is broken. That's very sort of structural. But with that broken leg comes, you know, grieving for how you functioned previously. Like I remember when I broke my elbow, I was devastated because I've been training so long for a triathlon and I couldn't do it. I didn't actually give a shit about the function of my arm, but I was devastated that I had to miss out on the Noosa Tri. So it doesn't, when we're holistic practitioners, yes, we look at the functional aspects and the physical aspects because that's part of being holistic. So again, if there's any alternate holistic health practitioners that ignore that part, they're not being holistic. We do need to look at the science, the function, the physical, because that is holistic to a human being. But we also need to take into account the emotional, the spiritual, the mental, all of those things, because that is
environment probably too. The environment,
absolutely, and that's going to get me to the next part, which is causes of hormonal imbalances. So, would anyone like to actually, those who can speak, let's just go around and say one thing that you think could be a root cause that initiates some hormonal imbalances in their body. Let's start with Michelle, because you
environmental.
Environmental. Perfect. So your environment. So that could be your home, your work environment. And we could be talking about the environment being really cluttered and a stressful environment, which I know if my environment is constantly, I hate claustrophobic environments and clutter everywhere. It stresses me out. And that stress is going to cause, you know, if it's constantly like that, every time I walk into that environment, there's going to be that stress associated with it. But when we're talking about environment, we're also looking at mold, like the toxins that are in the environment. So we've got to look at the environment from a broader standpoint. The other thing we might be looking at is the weather in the environment. So if you have someone who lives in like a freezing cold weather all the time, then they're going to have maybe different conditions when it comes to Ayurveda. So like they might have more kapha sort of hormonal imbalances, as opposed to someone in the heat going through menopause, having hot flushes. They're like struggling with that pitta type of energy and hormonal imbalance. So our environment is super important when we look at the root cause. So if we are, and we are Ayurveda holistic health coaches. So when we're treating clients who may have hormonal conditions and we're looking at all of these underlying reasons, we can ask them about their environment. And if their environment isn't optimal, we can be, you know, guiding them on some practices to help make that environment optimal. The other thing is, like, if it's a work environment, are you going into that environment with a horrible boss or colleagues that every time you go there, you're feeling really depleted and really stressed? I know I was working with a client for hormonal imbalances. I'll say hormonal imbalances, but she had PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, not always related to hormonal imbalance. It's a sensitivity to hormones. And she did so well. She did everything. She felt 100% amazing, but her fatigue kept getting her every time she'd go to work. And when we looked at the underlying cause of that, it's because she just didn't feel connected to her purpose there. She didn't feel like she was, living her dharma and what she should be doing. And so naturally, even though her diet was amazing, when she had days off, she felt amazing, and the morning and evening, but when she would walk into that workspace, she felt just all of a sudden tired and depleted, because that spiritual aspect of her and that connection to her purpose was gone. The minute she walked in there, it was a reminder, this isn't what I want to be doing. This isn't who I am. And that's why in my methodology, my higher self methodology, my third pillar is dharmic impact. Like, how connected are you to who you are and what you want to be doing and those type of things. And that's what in the program you guys will be doing with your business, is creating your own methodology and pillars, depending on the type of people you want to treat, because everyone in here serves different people. So yes, environment. Julie?
I think I'm not muted. I think like when you say stress, like prolonged stress, but also people's perception of stress. So my experience is once women have hit 40, they've raised families, they've had divorces, I've just noticed, I picked up on when we did the postpartum a few weeks ago, like I'm a single mother. I was a single mother till Hayden was 13. And I was like straight into the workforce, trying to get my body back, and that's continued. I mean, my son's 27 now, so it's continued for probably until 2 years ago when I changed my perception. So say 25 years of prolonged stress. So with my clients now, I'm sort of saying that stress of your work's not going to go away because you need to work. So you need to change your perception around, oh my God, I've got 50 emails. It's not going to kill you. So don't send that chemical reaction off in your body. So it's that perception around what we as women are doing these days. Like, we don't have to do it all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when our emotional well-being is less than optimal, and for everyone that's going to be different. So the way you experienced it is very real. And postpartum, we are struggling with that identity of who we were to who we are now, and how we have to mold to life and, raise a little one. So that can create a lot of stresses. And I think a lot of the time in the natural health world, when people talk about natural health and hormonal imbalances, and people just throw out there, oh, if you're stressed, it can create hormone imbalances. Well, yes, but what a lot of people aren't explaining is what you said, is there's a true chemical reaction, and we know that hormones are chemical messengers, that happens in the body and the mind and through the vagus nerve. There's a true chemical reaction that happens in the body to make it a very physiological reaction and hormone shift. So it's not like this airy-fairy way of saying, like, if we're not connected to our purpose, or we've lost our identity, or we've got this ongoing stress in our life, that it's airy-fairy, it can just create hormone imbalances. There's real reasons why that actually happens. And I think that's really important to know, because when you're explaining to clients, you also want to have like this beautiful way of delivering it depending on your client, and, talk about their identity and the shifts that they might need to go through, and relaxing. And we can do that through somatic work like breath work, meditation, whatever it is, journaling. You can give them some prompts, but also letting them know that it's not just like this, we're trying to give you this throwaway line of, oh, you're stressed and do a meditation. There's actually something going on in your body on a chemical level, and hormones are chemical. And if they're not communicating, then they're not functioning. They're imbalanced.
I feel like as women, we're just like, we wind ourselves up all through life. We're winding. And then perimenopause starts to knock on the door, and you've got these two things that just clash in our 40s. And then we're like, oh my gosh, what's happened to me? And then we're just lost,
Yeah. And we spoke about like transitions of life with Christina in her lectures, those having those major transitions in life from Ayurveda. They're a really important time of a woman's life to be really nurtured. And we spoke about the postpartum window of, you know, the sacred window, but the sacred window goes for any big transitional period. And what you're explaining, Julie, is that transition from perimenopause through to menopause. And again, you do lose your identity because you're transitioning into this new era of life. So that is really important, again, to be able to give us that space. And maybe the 40 days or that sacred window might not be that long for you, but whatever it is. And supporting clients through that transition can be life-changing for people, like absolutely life-changing. And sometimes that's just what they need. They just need that support person who can give them some really clear direction. The other thing is, you know, when our hormones are imbalanced, we can get really anxious, like it drives anxiety up. And that's, again, a chemical imbalance that's happening. But the part of our brain that makes decisions is also the part of our brain that is triggered with anxiety. So for someone who has a lot of anxiety, they can't make good decisions and they don't want to, it fatigues them too much. So as their coach or their practitioner, sometimes the best thing you can do for them is actually really help make decisions for them. And that's why I think maybe Mel, in your cohort, you were taught in life coaching school that coaching is about getting them to come up with their own things, which, yes, is absolutely right for some people.
Because, in that they say that everyone has their own wisdom. They know it subconsciously, just not consciously. And like you're talking about, Harmony, when you're stressed and fatigued, you can't think about it because you're so exhausted. So as a coach or as a practitioner, to ask really good quality questions and holding that safe space in order for them to unlock their subconscious and bring out their own wisdom, because they know what's best for them, you know, and we're just here to help guide that and facilitate that unlocking that of that known that they already have.
Yeah, absolutely. And that works well for like most clients, but sometimes in the early sessions, you have to give them more direction and guidance than just coaching them, because they don't have the ability to make the best decisions for themselves. So even after all my years of experience, I had a client the other day who was very anxious, going through a lot of anxiety, and I gave her two choices of a supplement to take or a herb or something like that, two choices. And she's like, I that's even too much for, I don't know. I just need you to tell me exactly what one to take. And I was like, that one. And she, you know, just like, you could just see this sense of relief, like even for her just to choose the brand she wanted, or I can't remember the exact what it was, but it was, and why I gave her two choices, but there was a reason for, I think it was to help with sleep, because there's two different herbs, and I was explaining the benefits of both and whatnot. And she couldn't make that decision for herself in that moment. And I was like, that's it, that's fine. This one's going to suit you. And she's like, yeah, that's all I need. I just need someone to tell me now, because anxiety takes over the decision making part of your brain when your hormones are imbalanced. So yes. So does that make sense? Like what Mel said is exactly right. As a coach, you want to bring out people's personal wisdom, but sometimes you have to step in as the authority and as the professional and give more directive orders as well. And that's okay. And I teach that in my coaching course, because I teach you to come at it from like a coach practitioner type of level as well. Well, Mel, since you're talking, which is your cause of hormonal imbalance?
You guys had great ones. So I think in addition to that is foods that we're ingesting and lifestyle as well.
Yes, foods. There's foods. Yes, let's go with that one, because you've given us a couple there. But food intolerances are actually a big one. And can anyone guess why food intolerances would cause hormones to go cray-cray?
Inflammation.
Yes, Zoom user, which is Michelle.
That's me. Yeah.
She pipes up on the walk. Absolutely, because inflammation, it sets off a stress response in the body, which is what it's supposed to do. So if you've got those emotional components going on, and then you've got food intolerances going on, or you're not digesting your food properly. So it doesn't even need to be food intolerances. It can be like low Agni, and we speak a lot about Agni and the digestive fire in Ayurveda. So if you have low Agni, poor digestion, food intolerances, poor gut microbiome, anything to do with your, let's keep the gut health one separate for now, but anything to do with foods triggering inflammation in the body, you're going to raise those cortisol levels, because cortisol comes in to help fight inflammation. But if there's chronic cortisol going on, that then becomes not good, because too high or too low cortisol is not good. And too much cortisol can end up being catabolic. What does catabolic mean? It means that it can eat away at our muscle mass, our protein stores. So for someone like Julie, who trains clients with exercise, that's another important thing to remember, is high cortisol will cause you to become catabolic, and muscle mass actually drives up our metabolism. So when you have those hormonal clients who are, have tried everything, they're still not losing weight, but they've got this underlining stress, underlining infection or food intolerance, or something that's just causing chronic but low level inflammation in their body. They've got that cortisol going constantly through their system. They become catabolic, they lose their muscle mass, and that drops their metabolic rate. So then when we are trying to help clients with their weight loss, and that's why it's also really important for women in the perimenopause to menopause age, which most of us are in here, not all, but most of us on this call, minus M, you're not, you're lucky. It is really important to step up our weight training, our body weight training. Like I was a cardio junkie. To be honest, I was one of those harden the fuck up or go home type people when it came to exercise. Like I really was. I was very pitta with my exercise. I have completely changed, and my body has been so thankful for it. Like I do so much more Pilates and strength training, and it's actually helped my metabolism tenfolds. So very important, as well as like if people are got this chronic stress going on, then they go do HIIT exercise. Now, high intensity interval exercise is great for men who want to shred like that, and great for women who do a bit, in their 20s, 30s, and great for women who are hormonally balanced. But if you're not hormonally balanced, and if you've got a lot of stress going on, you go to do HIIT exercise, then you're going to spike that cortisol up a lot. And for like I said, those groups like the men, the 20 to 30-year-old women, the women who are in their 40s, whatever, 50s, but hormonally imbalanced and can handle that exercise, it can be fantastic, because we're putting a positive stress on the body. And through that positive stress, we're creating metabolic shifts, and the body adapts to that and can create weight loss. But for those who are not hormonally balanced, who have lots of stress going on, that inflammation is going to stay up there. And I've witnessed this. I used to be a boot camp instructor. At the same time, I was a yoga and Pilates instructor. I was always like, why the hell is it my boot camp that go hardcore, they really struggle still to lose the weight? But I've got like these Pilates yoga clients that are not having an issue. And is it because they're just all like naturally Vata type bodies? No, it wasn't really. It was because there was this underlying stress that they had, or inflammation in their body, and they're just constantly doing HIIT. And so they're never letting that inflammation in the body settle. So did I go off track there? We're still talking about hormones. It's cortisol.
Yeah, that was great though. It was very relatable. I was like, oh my gosh, I could just, it's so true. And it's so nice, because like it's also putting your body in the parasympathetic, really, isn't it? Because that's why doing the breath work and the yoga and stuff, like sometimes I was the same as you, cortisol and jumping, and I'm like, oh, I don't even have to do all of that. It's so much nicer. The body doesn't change.
Exactly. I mean, like, and I'll still go for a couple of runs a week, or but I mix it up a lot more, and it's not cardio focused. I'll definitely favor Pilates and yoga and stuff like that now.
The other part of that too, Harmony, is when I went to a Dr. Libby seminar last year all about Russian women's syndrome. Yep. And she mentioned that when your body is in fight mode all the time, then you only burn sugar for energy. So inflammation plus only burning sugar for energy it's just a disaster for weight gain.
Exactly.
So that was the other bit which I found really interesting as well, with the cortisol being high all the time, and which explains why we blame cravings for sugar cravings in the afternoon, but in actual fact, it's our body just trying to survive. So we're fighting against a natural thing that's supposed to happen for us to survive, but we shouldn't be in survival mode because we're not going to die, you know?
100%. I was going to say that then what happens is we crave the sugar that we're burning because we need that glucose to function. And then insulin resistance, which is another hormonal condition. It just goes on and on and on. But the thing is, when it comes to, if you're treating root causes of hormonal imbalances, you're going to treat the hormone balance. It doesn't matter what hormone it is. And that's why Ayurveda is so good at hormonal imbalances, helping women with the root cause of their hormonal imbalances. Because what we do is we are getting them to reduce their cortisol, we're getting them to move their lymphatic system, we're doing all of the things we can support them through nutrition, lower the inflammation in the body, all of these type of things. So I'll just while we're on the gut and food pathway, I'll just also like to mention that I did mention about like having poor gut function and microbiome. Now, we have in our gut microbiome, and do you guys all know what I mean when I speak about microbiome in the gut? Our bacteria in the gut, healthy and non-healthy. Yeah. There's a bacteria called estrobiome. So that bacteria in the gut is really important for metabolizing estrogen. Our gut can also produce, our microbiome can produce some hormones, but it metabolizes hormones. So if it's not optimal, they're not getting metabolized properly. They're not getting flushed out of the system. And that's the same for if our lymphatic system isn't optimal. And that's why Abhyanga is so amazing and works so well for perimenopausal and menopausal women, because lymphatic Abhyanga, that which is the self-oil massage, it helps us mobilize our lymphatic system. Our lymphatic system, unlike our cardiovascular system, our lymphatic system has a motor of like literally 6 seconds. Every 6 seconds, tongue twister, six sexy seconds. Every 6 seconds, the lymphatic system. Oh, bloody hell! God, I can't speak. Who knows what I'm talking about here? Put your hands on. The lymphatic system will slowly move. And if it's not moving optimally, it's going to clog up, and it's going to not detoxify the body, because that's what it does. So in Ayurvedic anatomy, we spoke about the 7 dhatus, which are the 7 tissues, and we spoke about how the nutrients go on to feed all of those tissues. The very first tissue, does anyone remember what it was? One of the most important tissues to treat in Ayurveda, because it flows and it clears. Come on, guys, I just stuffed up saying it so many times. Lymphatic, which is called the rasa dhatu. So we treat the rasa dhatu. We treat that through Abhyanga. We can treat that through herbs, through steaming, through lots of different ways. But it's so important to get the lymphatic system moving, because it helps flush out the gut. It helps flush out the hormones. It helps flush out the toxins. And that's what we do a lot of when we're doing cleanses and detoxes, which we are going to do a group 1 together at a later stage. So the other thing, constipation, like that can create, obviously holds all the toxins in there. Again, we're not moving the metabolites of the hormones out. We're creating toxicity. Toxicity creates inflammation. We've just spoke about that in depth. So it's really important for our gut microbiome to be healthy, which when we're speaking Ayurvedic terms, we're also speaking about the Agni, so the digestive fire. So Ayurvedic nutrition, according to one's constitution, is super important for this. the other thing that really helps with the lymphatic system, again, is those somatic practices like breath work, because we can really actually pump the belly through like Kapalabhati breathing and things like that. Some of those more fire breaths, really important. But even just like a natural relaxed breath, because the prana, remember, prana is life force energy. Prana will move rasa dhatu, lymphatic, rakta dhatu, which is blood, and obviously prana, which is air and life force and all of those things through all of the cells. So really important to work on prana when we're also working on the lymphatic system and the rakta dhatu, which is the blood circulation of all the nutrients to our cells and to our hormones. And we spoke about that, I think last time we spoke about the 3 subtle energies of Tejas, Ojas, and Prana. So if you haven't, you can catch that in the last call. And then the other thing about the gut, what was I going to say? Yes, this is a huge one for hormones. And this is why I often prescribe nutrient. Why can I not speak today? My hormones have gone crazy. Brain fog part. Nutritional deficiencies. They're like, get her off. Who is this chick? She no educator. Oh God. This nutritional deficiencies are huge for hormonal imbalances, and that is because certain nutrients help our body synthesize hormones, create hormones. Without them, the hormones can't manifest. So they are super important. And that's why if they don't have a fantastic diet and herbs alone aren't going to help them, I will prescribe nutritional products. Like you might be saying, up your vitamin B. You guys can recommend up your vitamin B if, say, they have low energy, because vitamin B, selenium, iodine, they're all absolutely crucial, and iron absolutely crucial for the thyroid hormones to manifest, to synthesize, to communicate. So if someone is low in selenium and iodine, like completely, so is their thyroid, so is their thyroid hormones. So one of the first things you might say is, are they getting that through their diet? Can we just fix it that way? And if not, they may need a supplement for a little while, right? And magnesium is huge for anyone who is really, really stressed. It's like the #1 supplement that I would prescribe, because our body just eats up all of our magnesium stores if we're stressed. And we're not getting quality magnesium through the food a lot of the time these days because our soil's so depleted. And if you are an active person, so you are someone, or you're seeing a client who is like got this chronic stress, they're also doing some hardcore exercise, so that's depleting their magnesium stores. Sometimes that, and they're having trouble sleeping, magnesium can be a game changer. So perimenopausal, menopausal women, like magnesium is something, because I am so active, I need to take my magnesium, and I know when I do not. You can also get topical magnesium, a magnesium spray, which is really nice. So if you decide to treat clients and do like an oil abhyanga lymphatic massage for them, I would often finish with like a magnesium spray. If it's sort of stung a little bit, it means they were deficient in magnesium. After a sauna, like if you're doing sweat therapy with someone, recommend them to go have a sauna, tell them to have a little magnesium spray as well after.
And I think with magnesium, it's about finding what someone wants to incorporate in their day to take all the time. Like I found one that was just a liquid one. I absolutely love it. I can take a photo of it, but it's so delicious. So it's just such a rich, like I go to bed and if I haven't taken it, I'll be like, oh, that's right, I forgot to take that. So I'll get up and, but it's something that it had to be something that I really enjoyed doing to incorporate. So that could be a good way to find out what's best for the clients. And then they'll do it daily.
Absolutely. And look, in all honesty, I'm one of those people that I do take certain supplements, but I'm lazy with them, as in like, I'm like, oh, do I have to really swallow that? Like, so I get it when some clients are like that, but it's like, but it's going to be so life-changing when you do it for 3 months, and it's just swallowing a pill. And I have to remind myself of that. And then obviously, you know, as holistic practitioners, we want to get to a stage where we're working with them, we can, you know, take them off, or they don't need to rely on supplements, because now we've got their gut health optimal, their hormones optimal. We're just going to do it through diet. Unless they are, say, like vegan and they don't have enough vitamin B, then maybe they do need to supplement long term, or celiac, you know, things like that. So yeah, we eventually want to get them down to just optimizing their health so that we can optimize it through diet and lifestyle. That's ultimately what we're there to help them do, right? Okay, so who's still here? Is Michelle, is she able to speak?
I am here. I'm back in my, here we go. I'm back in my study now. So
do you have, everyone's taken like some of the
all of the good ones. All of the good ones.
So it's getting harder now, which I love.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I was going to say nutrition, but that was taken. Then the lifestyle, just, you know, which is obviously stress, exercises, all those things that we've kind of touched on as well. Gut health was another one, because I'm kind of combating that right now. So that I don't know what's left.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think you know, we could basically, with the ones we've said, well, first of all, I'll go to Emma, is there anything that's coming to your mind before I just like blurt them all out? Or she might not be able to talk.
Oh, sorry, no, I can. Yeah, I was thinking, oh yeah, the exercise one and diet and that, but what about sleep as well?
Oh, yes. Good one. Good one. Don't even, sleep is so underrated, as in, like, if we could just fix some people's sleep, we would fix their life. That is a really good one. And most women, the thing is, now you get me excited, that women who have shitty sleep patterns and shitty sleep hygiene, they will definitely throw their hormones out. But then women whose hormones have been thrown out for another cause, they start to have shitty sleep. And this is so prevalent for women in that perimenopause transition to menopause time of their life as well. It's like one of the biggest struggles. And if you're not sleeping enough, you're constantly tired, again, you're driving up the sex hormones, the cortisol. You may, if you're in the reproductive phase of your life, you might not be ovulating properly because your body doesn't have the energy. It takes so much energy and power to do a proper good ovulation. And where does most of our progesterone come from? Anybody? Most of our progesterone comes from ovulation. So you ovulate, and then if you don't fall pregnant, so the corpus luteum, so what happens, makes its own little gland that produces progesterone, and that happens because you've ovulated. So women who are highly stressed, women who have thyroid problems, things like that, and then they might be ovulating, but it might not be a great ovulation, or they might have an ovulatory cycle, so they still have a period, but they haven't actually ovulated properly, aren't making the amount of progesterone that they need. And so that can, fatigue, sleep will definitely affect our cycle, and it can stop ovulation, which makes more fatigue, more low energy, because again, progesterone is a supportive hormone in right amounts. So absolutely, sleep is a huge thing. The other thing with sleep is that why everyone goes on about that, the blue lights and all of those type of things, is I'll just finish this, Mel, and I'll pass it over to you. When light hits our retina, so it hits our eyes, it starts to block the melatonin production, and we need melatonin to sleep. So people who are really wired in the evenings, they're up late on devices, they haven't done their wind down routine, they're constantly feeding their senses and their light, which is obstructing the melatonin production that they need to then sleep. So they have low poor melatonin, equals low poor sleep. The other important thing to note about melatonin is it is a precursor for serotonin. So let's also say that there's most of our serotonin's in our gut. So again, if we have poor gut health, we have low serotonin, makes us not happy, makes our hormones go cray-cray, and also it can affect our sleep. But if we're not sleeping properly, that can also affect our serotonin production as well. So sleep is super important, and that's why dinacharya, from an Ayurvedic perspective, if we can get people into a morning routine, so we start in parasympathetic state, small morning routine, doesn't need to be fancy and big. An evening routine is just important to really wind them down, to really help them get into that parasympathetic state, to get their melatonin naturally producing. And yes, that is definitely important. 2 good herbs to help with sleep. One herb that, and you know, things always work differently for different people. So sometimes I say to my clients, which is probably what happened with this other client, I said, look, test these 2, see which one works better for you. But that was all too much for my anxious client. It's like, okay, just try this one for 6 weeks. But there's valerian root. Valerian root is a really good herb to help with sleep, and that one works for me. That was very good. The other one is kava. You know, kava from Fiji, that's actually a herb. You can get it here. That really helps with sleep. For anyone in the menopause phase who are a certain age, I can't remember if it's what age group are allowed, but they can get melatonin over the counter. Anyone younger than that cannot. So people who are having trouble sleep, that's some natural ways that 55, thank you, 55. So if your clients are over 55, they can go and get melatonin from the pharmacy, and it can just really help with a routine. Don't forget, we can never out supplement a good diet and a good routine lifestyle. You can never out supplement those things. That's why holistic health is a conjunction of all of them. And yes, beautiful Mel, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just something that came to mind when you were talking about producing progesterone.
Yeah.
That's it. Women who are on the pill obviously are not ovulating. So how are they producing? So anyone on the pill, you would notice that they're suffering insomnia and sleep and all that kind of stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah. So that's because the pill isn't balancing any hormones. It's shutting down the communication between the brain and the ovaries to ovulate. So it's not producing hormones. What the pill is synthetic hormones. So it's not you producing hormones. It's cut that off. And that's why there's so many different side effects with that. So yeah.
Why does the pill exist exactly? I mean, it's got a purpose. I know that the pill has a purpose, obviously, but it's just got so we just don't realize when we're younger too, unless there's just more information around it. Like I was on it for so long, and it just caused so many.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Caused havoc, but
yeah,
caused absolute havoc. But I'm just thinking, like, if I get a client in that is on the pill, you know, and they're having trouble sleeping, how, and we do all the lifestyle stuff, and we're still seeing that, you know, they're not sleeping because they're not producing that hormone, that P hormone. How are we supposed to, how could we help in that sense?
Yeah, so it stops progesterone, but it doesn't inhibit melatonin, which is a sleep hormone as well. So we can still offer them like the routine, because the other thing is it can drive cortisol, it can do all of these type of things, it can, the sleep issues, all of those. So the routine is super, super important, because when you can get your vagus nerve and the parasympathetic state to take over, that's going to really, really help relax the body. And there's so many different hormones that come in to help each other. So those 2 might have been, you know, abolished. The other thing is the pill does have progestin in it, and progestin, if it says progestin, it's a synthetic progesterone. So it works as a progesterone, but it's not a progesterone, if that makes sense. It's a progestin. So the things that you could do is like an evening routine, and then if they're still having problems, and it takes time, so you know the body's going to adapt to the body clock, but that's when you can like suggest maybe some of those herbs that could help them sleep. And then if they're over 55, they can go get the melatonin. If they really want to try the melatonin, they can talk to their GP if they're younger. So that's just some ways. Often with a routine, I might give them an OJAS drink, you know, one of those beautiful milk OJAS drinks, and just make it into a calming routine for them as well, so they feel grounded and earthy. and help them through that way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And Michelle said that she's read that low melatonin also causes inflammation. Yeah. Like when your hormones are out of balance, like for instance, like someone who just doesn't sleep, you can see, the big bags under their eyes. I mean, I'm a nurse. Like I've been a registered nurse for, I don't know how long now, maybe 18 years or so. And nurses are healthcare professionals, but I call them sick care professionals because some of them are the most unhealthiest people ever. And it's not entirely their fault. The night duties, they just trash your body and your mental health. And you eat crap on night duties to stay awake and all sorts of things. And then the most inflamed, out of shape people, these healthcare professionals, full of inflammation because they've got so many hormonal imbalances going on, including, the melatonin's being completely thrown off balance because they're not within a circadian rhythm that nature has predicted for us, and we're part of nature. That's the whole purpose of Ayurveda, is one of the whole purposes, I should say, is like to bring ourselves back into a balanced state and align ourselves with our natural rhythms. Well, that is the whole purpose, because that's what cures and supports our whole body functions. Our biorhythms in our body are connected to the natural rhythms outside. And, obviously back in the olden days, there would have still been hormonal conditions. Humans are going to have malfunctions, just like anything has malfunctions, but they probably weren't as rife as they are now because people were waking up with their sunrise. There was no electricity, so they were going to bed as it got dark. They were in a beautiful rhythmic state. Their body was. So their body as a female could be in that rhythmic state as well. It could ovulate. It could produce the melatonin. The hormones would be speaking to each other in a really nice way because everything is systemized. Whereas the way we live now, it's like, oh, it's my turn to work. Oh, no, it's my turn. Oh, they get bossy and they, shout at each other. And cortisol is one of the bloody bossiest hormones, unfortunately. So even back in the days, if they were stressed and they went through massive stress times, famine and all of those type of things, they would have had hormonal imbalances. But in general times, their bodies function better because of they were aligned with the natural rhythm. The body can get addicted to the bad habits too. 100%, Michelle, we can absolutely get addicted to the bad habits. And that's, something as a coach that can be so valuable if you can help your clients break those bad habits. And that's really hard to get a client to do that because it's turned into a habit. So being able to do that will absolutely change their lives.
Yeah, I can relate to that just really quickly. When I was, seeing various doctors over the years and, so I just want to function the way I was. And like, but the way you were functioning was not the right way. And I was, and I'd say to now with many years of kind of insight, I guess, is I feel really alive when I'm in that, right, go, thrashing through, like pumping things, through, crossing things off the to-do list. Like, but that's a high cortisol state, right? But that's when I feel most alive. That's when I feel like I'm working at my optimum, whereas I have to kind of change the definition of what working at my optimum actually is. And just to your point earlier on melatonin, I think that's where, individual differences really becomes important. So like I've been given melatonin a few times to try, and every time I have really vivid dreams. I wake up much tireder than before. It does not agree with me. Magnesium, on the other hand, yes. So I know for my body, it's the really gentle practices, it's the gentle supplementation that really kind of suits. So I think that's where, whereas other people are like, melatonin, swear by it, oh my God, amazing. And I'm just like, no, I've tried, it just does not work for me. So
thanks for sharing that. That is so important. And that's one of the principles we teach by here in the Ayurveda Alchemist program is an individualized approach, because it is so important. I think I remember you mentioning on another call before, Michelle, that you are very sensitive to supplements and stuff. And so for you, and again, that's why I suggested to that client the other day, like I sometimes will get them to rotate different things, because I don't want them to be on them for long term for sure. So maybe rotating between valerian, kava, and melatonin, but giving them all a go and seeing what works best for them. And that's why I like them to do that. But you're so right, because again, I've tried melatonin, do not like it, makes me feel really groggy. And some people absolutely love it. Some people swear by it and it works so well. But again, it's all about testing and trying what works for your body. Like I said, the valerian root works best for me. Sometimes it doesn't touch somebody. Sometimes it's too strong for somebody. And that's why individual medicine is so important, and bringing your unique authority into your practice. As I mentioned at the start of this call, all of us will see different types of women, conditions, men, we're going to work in different areas. And even in those different areas, we have to apply the principles to that individual's constitution, to that individual's needs, and test with them and talk them through it and explain what could happen, what might not work, what might work, and know that you're on that journey to support them through it. So that is so important to remember. And yeah, cortisol, we get that sort of that rush, that high, and we can get that for so long, but then we get completely depleted because we're sort of overburning the stores. That's the same as people who like drink a lot of coffee. They're like, oh, I've got my caffeine hit. Well, actually, you just got your adrenaline cortisol hit. Like that's what's giving you that sort of rush, because it activates the adrenals to release those type of stress hormones. So yeah, both very valid, very important points. So I think just to also wrap this up, I just wanted to say, like, we've gone through some really fantastic root causes of hormonal imbalances, and you guys came up with them all, which is amazing. And I think that we can, by looking at what they are, Anne, lovely to have you on the call. By looking at what they are, we can see that we can group them into sections. So we can look at like gut health, nutritional deficiencies, food intolerances, and yeah, all the gutty, foody stuff as one thing. So we are very good as Ayurvedic and women's holistic health coaches to help support our clients with those things, supporting the Agni. And then when we're looking at detoxification pathways, so supporting the liver, supporting the gut again, and the lymphatic system. So definitely prescribing things like the lymphatic massage for those that have like sluggish lymphatic systems and constipated, a lot of lymphatic belly massages, those type of things are fantastic. And then we've talked a lot about emotional stress and just understanding those triggers, and like it might take a consultation to be able to talk out identity shifts with your clients, why they're constantly feeling like they've always got to prove themselves. They've got to tick off all the to-do lists. Like if you've got a pitta client, you know that you're going to have to help them calm their expectations of themselves down a bit to be able to calm their body and their hormones down, because they're constantly going to be trying to strive and achieve those goals. And whilst that can be a really powerful thing, it can also be detrimental if they don't ever give themselves a rest. So we've really looked at the emotional and stress pathways as well, and how that impacts the hormones. Environment is another huge one. And obviously as Ayurveda lifestyle coaches or Ayurveda holistic health coaches, women's health coaches, whatever you decide you want to call yourself, environment is huge, and we work through dinacharya. So dinacharya also includes lifestyle routine, which would include our sleep patterns and behaviors. So having a wind down routine, having a morning routine, being able to declutter our environment, working out if our environment is causing us any stress triggers. Mold, is there dirt? Are we inhaling like crappy stuff into our lungs all the time? Do we always have sinus problems? It goes beyond just the hormones, but looking at the environment is super important. And again, toxin exposure, and we didn't really touch on this, but what are you putting onto your skin? Because your skin is the biggest organ in your body. That's why there's transdermal progesterone and estrogen, because those hormones, it's so powerful just to put in the skin and seep in. There's transdermal GTN patches, which controls your heart rate if you're a cardiac client. So transdermal, don't ever discard that. It's really powerful. And Ayurveda uses that a lot. And the way we can prescribe that, which is beautiful to help move the lymphatic system, but through the Abhyanga, because they use oil. And if you want to make that a medicated oil, meaning you suggest herbs to mix through it or whatever that might be, then that's a really great way to help nourish your clients. So maybe one of your next products, Michelle, could be an Abhyanga oil. But like a medicated one.
I'm actually just in the NPD process at the moment, actually, because I'm like, oh, I just am feeling like there's something new. So, and as you've probably seen it, I'm quite a bit of my socials now. There's a lot of like Ayurvedic stuff that has been
Loving it. Yeah. So guys, don't forget, like Michelle owns Tonica. So if there is like products that you do want to prescribe to your clients, like she does ashwagandha, she does mushrooms, she does a whole range, like, yeah, reach out to Michelle, or even just put a little thing in our group, Michelle, so people know where they can direct.
I was just drinking the NAC. Like we've got this NAC in the elderberry. Oh man, I'm just drinking it going, this is so delicious, And how nice to be able to say that about NAC, because it's pretty disgusting normally.
Yeah, I got the plain one, but that's because I mix it into different stuff.
Yeah.
But I want to explain what NAC does. Like, it is a biofilm bust. I said, do you want to? Then I'd butt in.
No, you go. Keep going. Yeah.
I would just say the way I use it with a lot of gut health patients, because it's a biofilm buster. So if someone's got like a parasite or something, it busts the film sort of around the crappy stuff so that you can penetrate into the cells to rejuvenate. But it's used for so many different reasons. And I know through COVID, like I just had my whole family on it, Michelle's one, and I've just put another client onto it, Michelle. If there's any inflammation in the body, if you've got cold and flus, again, because it helps with all of that. But you explain the NAC.
Yeah, well, that was perfect, because I guess it just feeds our glutathione, which is like our, powerhouse of antioxidants in the body. So I just found I had a cold on Saturday because I've had pretty yucky jet lag. And I was like, oh man, this is pretty bad. Like I've gone down with it. But that just came with obviously the sleep being really affected. Everything you were saying today was very hitting home. But I literally, like, the cold came and I'm just all about on the NAC. Obviously the mushrooms are just huge for me too. But I think keeping that immunity really strong and removing all that congestion, like keeping that in flow. I woke up on Sunday and I'm like, oh, I'm okay. So I just think, and same as for kids, like what you're saying, so great for the kiddies to keep their immunity up with schools. And now it's super cold down here, obviously. So I think a big one with the NAC is for like the immunity and feeding that glutathione in the body that can just, get rid of stuff, congestion, detoxification. I mean, all those beautiful things that your body doesn't want, those toxins, and to be able to have something that can assist that on a daily basis, it's quite easy to add to your day, I think is game changer.
It would actually work really well in an Ayurvedic cleanse. Just with the whole cleansing process. I sent a client the other day a picture of the NAC I've got, which is your NAC, because she's got autoimmune condition, and I just thought it'd be really good for her. So yes, so pop a little.
I found like a lot of the stuff that you were saying there about, like, it's good to have it in the morning so it doesn't get affected by any other proteins that you've had in your system, to do exactly that, to do what it needs to do on your gut before you kind of add anything else on. But it's really easy to add. And I just find that, like, food choices, like you make the right food choices based on what your body needs. And again, then your body seems to regulate its own weight, like without too much effort. Like, that's so nice.
Absolutely. So talking about toxin exposure, NAC is good. N-acetylcholine. N-acetylcholine. It's like this big long word, so we just all call it NAC. Yes, and cleaning products. Like, I do make my own cleaning products because I will cough. I cannot stand the cleaning products you get from the store, like the spray and wipes. I did actually buy one the other day for the first time ever, like a complete organic one, which has actually been good. It hasn't triggered anything for me. But I generally just use it with essential oils and some water. That's what I use for cleaning products. And that could be, creating any sort of toxins that we're ingesting through our nasal passages, our mouth, our skin can affect our hormones. Any sort of low-grade inflammation we spoke about, autoimmune conditions, you know, they go often hand in hand with hormonal imbalances, things like that, viruses. So, you know, COVID and the flu, they can start to trigger inflammation, low-grade inflammation in the body, which can trigger hormonal imbalances. So things like that, you might notice if you've had a virus that you won't get your period or be a bit late, things like that, because it affects the hormones. Yeah, and we already mentioned this in stress, but I think, again, coming back to that self-awareness and connection and those type of things, because that can just play like this lingering little best pit of anxiety or depression, or however it manifests for that client according to their constitution. And sometimes it's just like I said about my client, who was just always energy depleted when she went to work because she just didn't have that self-connection to her purpose, changing that. And just either, it doesn't need to be changing careers or jobs, because that's not always feasible for everyone, but how can they change how they perceive it? Like Julie said at the start, like how can you perceive that job differently, or how can you change it, and just guiding them on those things. And that's really what being a holistic health coach is about. It's not just about diet. It's not just about supplements or, you know, Abhyanga or routine. We have so many tools as Ayurvedic coaches and practitioners, and it's about individualized medicine, as Michelle mentioned, which individualized medicine isn't just medicine you take, like herbs and medicine. Individualized medicine starts from dinacharya, starts from what their emotional and mental needs are. It's all of that. And that's why if you can formulate a really good methodology of your own unique methodology with pillars that you can present it in a program or one-to-one, like however it is going to work, but you're touching on all of those aspects that client needs, the result that you're going to give them. And if you're working with women, hormones are always going to be a factor we have to consider. So yes, thank you guys. It's been a great session.
That was amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I can talk forever about, you know, women's health, my jam. But it's been good. It's great that everyone's been able to contribute as well. That's sort of what I really want for these classes, is we can have these chats, we can apply it to our own life or our clients' lives. That's what it's all about.
Thanks, Holly.
You're welcome. Does anyone have any questions before we go?
Other than just making it easier to do all those things that we need to do.
Yeah.
I know.
Like, you know the theory, but the practice is hard. And I think sometimes it's just about finding, like as you say, the practices that resonate with you. And Michelle, you said the same thing, right? So that makes it easy. Like whether it's habit stacking, you know, you just add something little to what you already do, and all of those sorts of things.
Just starting small, like even if it is
correct.
Like, I struggled with like the evening routine, just because like Bob and then I'd put her to bed, I'd be in a dark room. So I just really struggled. But the morning routine, like I really got that. And then that kind of, I was like, oh, this is really working. So then I started the evening routine. I was like, oh, this is really pleasant, you know? So then I want to keep doing it. Like you want to start making it a part of it. But I resisted the evening routine for so long, just sabotaged it completely, but only it has made my life so much better. But yeah, I just think tiny little things to start, and then when you do feel the difference, then you want to try something else.
Exactly. And that's why I always say just give your clients really simple steps to start with, because if you give them this big overwhelming routine, they're not going to do any of it. Whereas if they do one change, if they woke up and, you know, if there's someone that sleeps in until their kids wake them and they have to rush out, get them breakfast, get them ready for school and go, they're already in that sympathetic state. Cortisol's already shot up before they've done anything. They scull a coffee, race off to drop their kids off, get home, get ready, go to work, whatever it is. They're already in that stress level and their hormones are already going. Wah! So if that is your client, one suggestion you could work with them to do for the next 2 weeks or whatnot until you see them next is get up a little bit earlier. So you might need to start going to bed later, go to bed earlier as well. And by getting up earlier, you will want to go to bed earlier. So it might take a while for their body, 2 weeks at least, for their body clock to get used to that. Get up 20 minutes earlier, wash your face, sit down, literally do 5 minutes of breath work, then go and eat something with your kids. Like, it could be as simple as that. It's like an extra 10 minutes in the morning, you know, and that can just be a life changer because they get to sit with themselves. They get to feel into their body. They get to start in a parasympathetic state. So they're going into their day in a calm, relaxed mood rather than getting up and going and they're already crazy and pissed off with the world because everything's rushing around them so fast. And if they've already, remember what I said about if they've already got that anxiety, their decision making is not going to be very good because it's the same part of the brain that they're using. Whereas if they can start in a more of a relaxed state, they've anchored themselves with the breath, even if it's just 5 minutes, they can go and be like, okay, yep, breakfast, get your shoes ready, you know, do this, put in some boundaries, whatever they need to do. So just really simple. We don't have to make it like an hour-long routine. And then if that's good for them, you might be like, oh, well, you know, in 2 months, they might be like, I could get up even earlier. And like, great, get up 20 minutes earlier and add a walk on. Like, walking movement in the morning is so refreshing to get out in the elements. That's just like Michelle, she's like, I'm going to walk and listen to this. I'm like, yes, go for it, girlfriend. Like, that's where you know, some of the best inspiration comes from when you're moving the body. So yeah, it's what works for you, and it takes time. Like, I know my routine now, it works for me. I have to move my body every morning. I get up, I get up with the sunrise. I have a tea in the mornings and just some like quiet time, tap into the breath and then move my body. I've put in boundaries at a very early age with my kids. They're 11 now though, so they're independent, but I make sure that they've got themselves ready for school and everything. So by the time I get home, I don't have to get them ready. They're already ready. Like, that's just a rule. They've got to learn their independence. And then I can take them. I've got to leave the house by 7:30 in the morning, but I still have my morning routine. I'd be lost without it. Yeah. Evening routine, I just shove my legs up the wall and do a bit of a meditation and wind down with my husband. Like, it's not long at all. On my morning, I also do nausea, but yeah, evenings are a shorter routine, but I still do it, still ground myself. But
also, that's a really good point because I'm a real morning person too. So maybe that's why I was really resisting the evening routine, because I was just tired. I'm like spent. But
yeah,
sometimes with our clients, they might be night people. So maybe they want to start with a nighttime routine because that resonates more with them, you know?
exactly. Individualized medicine. I do like at least a 2-minute calming wake up calm in the morning, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm all about morning.
Yeah.
But
Starting
thank you.
parasympathetic and ending parasympathetic is the goal.
That was great. I'm going to go too, guys. I've got little bubbies. So thank you so much,
Thanks.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. Bye.